Hello, everybody, and welcome to our new version or new edition of our podcast, or CRM podcast. We have a really interesting subject matter to talk about today, AI. But AI in customer experience and how it's changing the way organizations deliver their customer service experiences and how they can improve. Together with us, we have a special guest, Jamie from Ada. Maybe, Jamie, you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Jamie. I work at Ada, an AI agent platform. I am a senior manager of our customer solutions consulting team. Essentially, what that means is the people on my team are sort of that perfect mix between business savvy, but also with a really strong technical skill set. And they actually stay with our customers through their entire life cycle with our company. So when we have new customers that come in and want to learn about what we do, we really help understand their core business needs and see if our technology is able to help solve those needs.
Yeah.
We also then support them through implementation as well as their long-going success with the company and with our product. So that's a little bit about me and what I do at Ada.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I'm CMO for redk, and I also lead the customer experience practice. So very often I come across very interesting conversations with our customers and the challenges they're facing. We are publishing a report that you can see the link in the description about how AI is impacting the way customer experience is being delivered, and because it's completely changing the way brands are approaching solving this problem. Only a year ago, we were talking to customers about how we can structure their ticketing systems. And that conversation is shifted completely into how can we use large language models and AI to deliver that experience in a much more efficient but very effective way, right? And one of the things that we find, that I find incredible, is that because it's a fairly new thing, people still have a lot of misconceptions about what AI is and what it isn't, right? And very often when we talk about AI, customers are talking actually about, in their mind, they're talking about ChatGPT. And ChatGPT uses a lot of the productized AI, but there's a lot more out there of things that are very mature that can be made available for companies. When you come across, what sort of, when you talk to customers, what sort of misconceptions or wrong ideas do you come across talking to brands?
Yeah, there's quite a few. There's probably 3 or 4 that I think come up pretty commonly. One is that specifically in regards to AI chatbots, I think that there's still this misconception, even with the release of ChatGPT, where people have in their minds this old school version of a chatbot, one that's incredibly scripted and takes a lot of manual effort, to be honest, to get up and running. You have to train the model, you have to write all your responses out, and it takes a lot of educating to customers to make them understand that a lot of that is no longer needed in the world of ChatGPT and now what we call AI agents that are actually able to, in real time, pull from knowledge sources to automatically generate answers. So really that misconception is still there of we're not in this old school world of scripted chatbots, but it's really transformed quite significantly. And some customers come to us and are aware of that, but still a large number need to be sort of educated on that transformation that's really occurred in the last year.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because a lot of companies that, chats and chatbots have been around for 10 years now. And there's a lot of legacy technology in businesses. But the technology is not only the technology that is legacy, it's the way of working, the way of thinking, the way you plan the work around how you're going to deliver that service, right?
Yeah.
So you really do have to think differently in order to make the most out of the technology. When I try to explain it to customers, it's like having a new employee in the business, someone that can actually read the information that is necessary to service customers.
Yeah.
Someone with a really good memory.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I think that's quite fundamental. Can you give us a couple examples of how you are able to deliver that?
Yeah, well, I think this actually flows nicely from my last point, which is that if you think about bringing an agent into, kind of talks about another misconception. You talk about bringing an agent into your organization. How do they learn? Well, they learn off of the information that's provided to them, training sessions, but also your documentation, like your help center, your articles, and that's how what they read from to both prepare themselves to answer customer questions, as well as what they look to in real time. And so with AI agents rooted in generative AI or large language models, it's the same thing. So the misconception here is that, you go and get a generative AI bot, but you don't have a really strong knowledge base. And that's just not going to work. The core way that you can make sure that your AI agent is as powerful as possible is by ensuring that the existing knowledge that you have is up to date.
But that would be the same with any human. I mean, if
Correct. Yeah.
the person didn't have the information.
Exactly. And I think what we saw historically was that people would actually look for chatbots in some instances as a fallback to knowing that their knowledge base was not very good or wasn't very effective. And they're like, let's go find a chatbot because we can then orchestrate the answers all ourselves. But that's a lot of work. It's also doubling up on effort. You've already built this knowledge base. Now you're saying, well, it's not that great. Let's now go build a secondary one. So that's the other misconception here is no, actually a single source of truth is great and what we should work towards. And we now allow through an AI agent you to continue operating on that single knowledge base. But like your agents, you need to make sure that it's up to date and it follows best practices.
Yeah, I think the technology setup is completely different, right? You're talking about hierarchical structures of decision making for old chatbots. And now using large language models, natural language processing, machine learning. So the way, even though both are chat systems or chat interfaces, they're completely different in terms of the technology that is being used, right? Chat is one of the interfaces that we use to interact with customers, but you're also introducing now email and phone, right? Phone conversations into. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how the assistants come into play into those interactions?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think as a company, we don't want our customers to have to make choices about where they deploy this generative AI to their customers. What we want to do is make sure we build the best AI agent possible. And if for you and your business, the primary way your customers interact with you is voice, great. You can deploy your AI agent over the voice channel. If you're a primarily email company, you have that option. If you primarily live in Twitter DMs with your customers, but it's just that idea of like, we want to give our customers that optionality. So what we're building is a platform that allows you to deploy it wherever you see fit, within a single interface as well, not needing multiple interfaces that you need to control. So yeah, we're over messaging. We have a generative voice product that's launching shortly, as well as email as a channel too. And it all acts in a similar fashion. So again, it's really focused on making sure that you have your knowledge bases that the AI agent can learn from. Of course, we also give the ability to add in coaching and controls on top of that, which I can talk about a little bit later. But yeah, it's really just about meeting your customers wherever they're trying to interact with you.
Yeah, I find that really interesting because I think when you focus about the content that the assistant needs to have, there's a lot of knowledge in businesses on what is needed to be able to deliver good customer service in terms of knowledge and insights on how the business operates. E-commerce, financial services is another example, right? But very often the perception is that you have to do so much work to make this work, right? But you're saying you can plug into a pre-existing knowledge base, right? Generally, what sort of timelines, what sort of effort does it take? Let's say that I'm a financial services company or fintech. I have my pre-existing very large knowledge base that nobody uses, by the way. What sort of effort does it take to get an AI assistant to be plugged into this and deliver service to customers?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, we're obviously building a number of out-of-the-box integrations, which are really just like flip a switch and they're in there. And those are ones that we're going to be focusing on building out more and more. But we also give our customers the flexibility. So we have a quite open architecture. We have APIs that allow you to push your knowledge into the product. So as long as your knowledge source has APIs available, I mean, that's something that an engineering team could theoretically do in a day, potentially a bit longer if it has to fit into their sprint cycle and whatnot. We also obviously have internal resources and partners that can help, but it's pretty straightforward. Where I will say it is a bit more, it becomes more complex, and there's a lot of companies that fall into this world is where there's potentially PDFs, even physical copies of knowledge. So I think there's those instances where it'll be a bit heftier of a lift, but a lot of customers, are using some type of SaaS-based knowledge platform today, and for those, it's
the majority. I think the majority of customers have a comprehensive text-based knowledge base, right? And they put a lot of effort into creating this, whether it's internal or external. But they are not able to leverage it because customers don't really, if they're using a standard chatbot, they'll never get to the right answer quickly, right? Because maybe they don't have all of the information for the context of the question. They don't have their ticket number, their customer number, etc. Right? So I think this is one of the most impactful things that I see customers can get out of this type of technology, because it facilitates the access to that information, right? One of the other things that we find interesting is a lot of companies are very apprehensive about enabling ChatGPT because of the information leak, right? So what are you doing in that regard? Like, what is the trend to in terms of security and how to manage that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's quite honestly like a lack of industry standard in this space yet. I think it's starting to happen, but there isn't a blueprint right now for how to best manage this kind of across the industry. Things that we're seeing that we're also deploying that I think are really important for customers to look for when they're evaluating AR vendors are really tight policies of how these companies work with their large language model providers. So, what security and privacy standards are you upholding the vendors you're working with to? Ensuring as well that you have really tight rules and agreements around data retention and what they're using that data for. So, like, for example, the data that we do send to that large language model cannot be used to train external models. That's something that you need to check for, that not all AI vendors might actually make promises on. So I think looking for vendors that have those stringent rules with their providers, as well as making sure that the data that is transited isn't encrypted to a certain standard level. So those are some things that are important. I also think it's really important for AI vendors and for customers evaluating AI vendors to have some level of optionality with the providers that they use. What I mean by that is, both from a quality standpoint, as well as a security and privacy standpoint. So today, OpenAI might provide the best LLM possible. They might be seen as the industry standard from security and privacy, but it's possible that changes tomorrow. They might have a leak that really sort of disrupts, a data leak that disrupts the industry. So I think being a system that can say, okay, we're going to go and switch to an Anthropic, because we feel more comfortable and confident about how they're handling their customer data. I think that's really, really important.
So I guess a lot of it is you having an understanding on what you need to ask from vendors, right? Having a defined policy, clear defined policy. Right. So there is a learning curve as well in organizations to understand what that means, right? Perhaps from a security perspective, from an operational perspective, policies, etc., right? In terms of organizations adopting this type of technology, because this has a huge impact on a company's ability to deliver experiences that are that have the power to differentiate the brand, right? Because they will be very fast, 24/7, and very accurate, right? So when organizations want to start thinking about how to do this, where can they start? What are the 2 or 3 recommendations you'd give to companies to start the journey of implementing AI in CX?
It's a good question. I might have to think about that one. So internally, when they're evaluating a project, like where do they
Let's
begin?
say I have a fintech. We have a massive amount of vendors, several tens of thousands, B2B or B2C. I have my knowledge base, but right now my customer service is human, 100%,
Yeah.
with very little automation,
Yeah.
beyond a couple of macros that most ticketing systems will have.
Yeah.
What would be the safe way to start implementing something that has an impact, that can deliver results quickly without going full on, crazy into AI technology
Yeah.
that you cannot even understand?
Yeah, yeah. It's a good question. I think looking for vendors that are really comfortable growing with you and at your pace, and sort of offer like levels of service. And by that I mean the ability to go live with a very basic generative bot that's maybe only tapped into a portion of your knowledge base, and that you only initially may be exposed to a certain segment of customers. I do think with this technology, a huge part of becoming comfortable with it, both from companies as well as for their customers, is the ability to build that trust with the technology. And I think doing that in a phased approach is the right play for a lot of these companies, especially when they're coming from a position of having like no AI in their CX. And we would never recommend that either. Like we have sort of a maturity framework. And that's where we would recommend starting customers. So I think finding like the vendor and the partner that both allows you to do that and is willing to kind of go on that journey with you is important. I also think that a vendor that allows you to have control despite it being generative is something that's really important to evaluate. I'll be honest, if you go on Google and say like, I want a Chat GPT fully generative bot, you can go get a free version and launch it like tomorrow. Now, will you have any control over that? What are you going to do if it gives unsafe answers? Like hallucinates, it's kind of out of your control. So I think if you're a customer that's doing this for the first time, you want to make sure that you're working with a partner and a vendor that has built in those types of controls to give you more assurance.
I think one way, like you mentioned, understanding what the maturity curve is, what are the stages, what can you go for at the beginning that are low risk iterations with customers. Because at the end of the day, customer service teams are looking to deflect, the human time and deliver the fastest possible, most accurate customer service. But that may take a little bit of time to build that mechanism within. But starting is actually a relatively easy step if you understand what you're starting with, right? I think we address a lot of these subjects in the latest report that we're publishing. So feel free to read it. It's free online. You don't have to. It's not gated content. It's available on our website. I think today this is all the time we have for. But thank you very much, Jamie, for the conversation. We also have apart from the report, we have a CRM roundtables where we talk to peers in the industry. We talk to customers that are implementing this type of technology, and they've been very successful at bringing people together and having conversations around these subject matters. So you're also invited to sign up for those. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next episode.